Good morning, everybody. I guess you've had a few seconds of me yawning. I thought I was a minute early. I'm Steve Lentini, and I'm the founder of Lord and Lentini. And today I'm talking about how you can learn to run that little voice in your head rather than letting it run you. And top producers learn to run their mind. And it's a journey. There's no one that overcomes the mind 100%. But there are things you can do, and it involves going to the gym, but not the Planet Fitness. It involves going to the neuro gym. And a lot of people don't want to take any time to practice developing the muscles of the mind. And the reason that happens is they believe that little voice. They believe they're thinking. And you will hear people, and probably have heard people say over their lifetime and in your lifetime, "This is who I am. Get over it." And it's such small minded thinking because it's not true. It's not who they are, it's who they've decided to be, who they've trained themselves to be. And there's research that backs it up. Joe Dispenza talks about the subconscious stores everything after a certain point, much like learning anything new, riding your bike or riding a motorcycle or skiing or surfing or driving. And when we first learn something, we're nervous. We want to remember everything. We want to do it right. We maybe don't want to be humiliated or humbled. And after a while, with practice, the subconscious takes over. At least for me, I don't know about for everyone else, but I've had moments on the highway where I just all of a sudden thought, wait, who just drove the last few miles? I maintained my distance, made my exit, got there on time wherever I was going. But I can tell you that a lot of it was automatic as my mind was considering other things. It's the same for every emotional event you've experienced. Every person that upset you, every time you got sad, every time you were angry, it's the exact same thing. You're up until the age of 35, neuro researchers says that our proclivity is to remember those things. The subconscious. We don't consciously say, wow, every time this happens, I want to be sad. Or every time I meet a person like this, I want to be angry and give them a piece of my mind. It just happens over time, up to the age of 35. And most people do no work to reprogram it. So it becomes the program running the program, like Windows 11 or iOS, like on your iPhone. You can click on all kinds of things, but there's a system underneath. There's a program running the program. So it's fascinating that humans, have a program running the program, and then those are the same people that programmed computers, right? They programmed in default patterns, things you can click on, and there is still a program underneath it all running the program. And you have to decide, will you run the program or will you let it run you? George Ivanovich Gurdjieff called it the machine, the little voice, and used to say, will you let the machine run you or will you run it? Rainer Maria Rilke said he called that little voice the little hooligan. And he said, will you let the little hooligan run you? This is what gets in the way for sales people, sales managers, and leaders in any position. What I find in the 25 years that I've been coaching people, it's 26 this year. By the way, some of the clients I've had for almost that whole time, some of the clients I have, one is over 20 years, another is 23 years. They learn to question their thinking and run their mind. And the thing I've learned is that's the block that gets in most people's way, and they don't want to overcome it. They want to believe they're thinking because they want to be right. You have so many leaders you read about, or perhaps you've worked for people that their ego is so big. They always want to be right and they make others all wrong around them. And then salespeople are so impervious to feedback sometimes that gets in the way. They listen to that little voice. Again, it's all ego, which Wayne Dyer used to say it stood for edging God out. I have a quote that I sometimes say to people: if you're judging others while they're talking, you're discounting the wisdom that the Creator, God, is trying to share with you. And whatever you call that voice, by the way. Psalm 91 says it has no name. It doesn't matter what you call it, that God loves all of his creations or her creations. Of course, right? The infinite intelligence would just single out one group or make you wrong because you chose some other path. Think about that. Do you think the infinite God thinks like we do? No, it's our job to stretch our thinking and go from small-minded, egoic thinking to the infinite thinker over time. And it takes a lot of work. Life is a friend, and it can be viewed that way, as a friend. Embrace life as a friend. Life is a gift. Now look at the globe is painted on this little marble. I always keep it here. I think here's the US over here. Let's see. There's the United States and South America. We're that little. We're living on something that tiny. And physicists have actually said it's smaller than that, or the Earth in relation to the size of the universe. So we have to get over ourselves. You're going to make mistakes. So what? It seemed like a good idea at the time, I bet. And that's the place you have to be, is have a sense of humor. And as a leader, you want to be embracing all the different people around you and asking them, what's your opinion? What do you think? What are some of your ideas? Bring them to me. And then say, okay, well, how'd you come to that conclusion? Is to be open and accepting to everyone in your life, and to know that the ones that bother you actually are the biggest gifts. Your best friends are those who will risk your wrath. A boss that gives you feedback about how you could improve and where you need to improve. Imagine if he didn't share that with you. And then imagine not knowing after he shared it with you or she shared it with you. Imagine not knowing. You could say, thank you. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you very much. Now you can address it and change. And so how do you overcome that little small-minded thinker that has you reacting all the time? Because reacting, by the way, I hyphenate that word when I do a seminar or a keynote address. I hyphenate re and act because it's something previously learned. Now, I didn't know until recently about the age of 35. Up till the age of 35, the subconscious says this: oh, we know how you react. We know how you handle this when this kind of person comes. You give them a piece of your mind. We know why you feel sad right now because of this event and that event. And so, yes, you feel sad, or you feel less than, or you feel more than someone. All of those things are judgmental, and none of them are healthy. We're just here. That's the place. There's nothing personal except what you choose to make personal, by the way. We have people that hurt our feelings, but that's our choice. It's because we're living from the outside in. We're looking for validation from the world. I've been there. I'm not saying I never did. And I suggest never follow anyone or anything blindly, even me. I tell my clients, if I ever tell you I found the way, run away. Now, my clients will call me back in a few weeks and say, Steve, did you regain your sanity? What I urge people to do is make your life an experiment. Start putting out new energy. The energy you put out every day attracts a like-minded energy. Joe Dispenza says the quantum field responds to our predominant thought patterns. So think about your predominant thought patterns. If you can rewire them, neuro researchers, by the way, call it pruning and sprouting. Like pruning an apple tree makes room for new growth and new branches that are even more productive. You can prune your mind. Shirzad Chamine, in his program that I've become certified for, I love it because it takes my acorn brain talk to another level. He divides the negative thinker, the acorn brain, into 9 saboteurs. Then the master, or the acorn, he calls it the judge, and there's 9 saboteurs that trigger your judge. And we give ideas about how, in the neuro gym, to revert to more positive thinking called the SAGE attributes. The SAGE attributes. There's 5 of them. There's empathy, there's explore, there's innovate, there's navigate, and activate. And those are 5 things you do upon reflection when you notice you're triggered. So here's a few things you can do. 1, start just noticing where you're triggered, who and what triggers you. And that's a whole range of emotions, from anger and frustration to sadness and depression and everything in between. Start to notice what triggers you. Just notice in the beginning. And from there, you will discover over time, as you start to notice you're triggered by someone or something, let's say it's an angry response to someone, you might stop in the middle of a trigger and say, I'm a little triggered. Let me take a break for a second. Let's talk about this in an hour. But it starts with self-observation and the willingness to notice where you're triggered, who triggers you, and what the events are, and what your emotions are. Then you go to the neuro gym. Now, there's a lot of other work that will help you in the neuro gym. You can view Joe Dispenza on YouTube. He's got some great stuff. You could go to his seminars. Shirzad Chamine has a great book called Positive Intelligence. Read the book. There's also coaching. I include the Positive Intelligence, what he calls the PQ program, which is daily work, 10 minutes, broken up throughout the day. I use it every day. I have an app on my iPhone that I click on. You have exercises that take you to the SAGE mode. You get what I call a pattern interrupt. And over time, it's like going to the gym. You could build up a muscle. It's not that big. In your physical body, and you can also build up your muscle in your mind. And what happens is you're more open to embracing life as it shows up. You welcome interruptions. You welcome flight delays. You welcome canceled meetings. You welcome customers that say, no, we're not interested. All right, tell me why. I'd like to learn something about. Was it me? Was it our product? Where could we improve? What were some of the reasons? You're not devastated when things don't turn out your way. You learn to embrace life as a friend. You surrender to what shows up. And amazingly, now you're going to prove this to yourself, more shows up that amaze you. When I get triggered, I remember something Muhammad said: what reaches you was never meant to miss you. What misses you when I'm lamenting something that hasn't shown up yet, when my acorn brain isn't trying to enroll me, oh, you don't have this yet. You haven't sold $1 million. What misses you was never meant to reach you. Christ said everything works together for good. And many, many of the other sages, by the way, I wrote a book called Sage Advice, some living, most long dead, or long in what's next, having great wisdom for thousands of years. It astounded me when I did the research for the book. And then on November 18th, 2002, 5 days after being admitted into the intensive care unit of the Waltham Hospital in Massachusetts, I flatlined. But I can tell you that even getting in the ambulance, I was a sales trainer for a nationally licensed program. One second I was doing my work for a group, my clients. The next second I needed an ambulance. But I can tell you, I was grateful. I had no fear. I think the EMTs were expecting me to be kicking and screaming, saying, I don't want to die, I don't want to leave. No, I was grateful. They thought I needed a shrink when I said that because they asked me, how you doing? I said, I don't know how my body's doing, but I'm grateful. That part of me that's not the body, the nobody. Joe Dispenza talks about that. Wayne Dyer did, Deepak Chopra. And 5 days later, I was with pure consciousness, as Deepak calls it, or what's next, as I now call it. I went from intensive care to the infinite. And without going into a lot of details here, what I can tell you is where we go from here is way above what we think. And there's no reason to fear it. Now, as I think back, I thought perhaps it was my study of gratitude and writing gratitudes in the morning, 4 or 5. Sometimes I wrote 1,000 gratitudes. And that was a task a coach gave me. But I also made it a habit to write gratitudes every day, morning and night, and think about what I was grateful for, often throughout the day. When certain events would occur, I would look around and say, wow, I'm grateful for that. That's amazing. I'm living in a miracle. Then I got the invitation to return to the miracle. And that's, as I reflect on it now, that's how I felt waiting for the ambulance, when the EMTs arrived, when I got to the hospital, even those first 5 days in intensive care. I never thought of anything other than I was alive in a miracle at the moment, but I was also one with the divine, with God, the goddess, the infinite, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it. Because we tend to think that if you don't have a certain belief, you're never going to get back to where the infinite resides. Think about that, how small-minded that is. And that's good. Whatever faith people have, that's great. I don't make it wrong, because whatever brings them to the idea of the divine is wonderful, that we live in a miracle. But when we start making others wrong so we can be right, it's small-minded. And that's where so many people get stuck. They get stuck believing they're thinking. And that's what's keeping them from the next level of enjoying life. They're living from the outside in instead of learning to live from the inside out, to decide to be happy no matter what, that every moment is a miracle, that the infinite energy that created this existence for us is never absent. If it was, this whole thing would collapse. You think the universe would still be expanding if whatever created this just gave up or died? We live in something amazing that even as close as physicists think they are to answering all the mysteries, they are so far off. Probably as far off as the Incas and the Aztecs were when they were sacrificing princesses and babies to satisfy the gods. When we still have all kinds of small-minded thinking around us, you can see the effects of it. Our leaders are small-minded, getting up and pointing fingers at each other. This was wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. And then, of course, there's wars just because people believe things differently. It's sad, and it's part of life, right? So that we can witness it and learn how small-minded it truly is. When we get to see it, we know. But then we also want to be on the right side. That's the acorn brain. So start to notice what triggers you, because it's keeping you stuck somewhere on a certain level. Then as you notice what triggers you, do some research about how you can rewire the brain. Remind yourself, as Joe Dispenza calls it. prune some reactions, come up with something new, sprout something new, and see what happens. Then do research on how you can rewire that brain. And by the way, neuro researchers doing fMRIs on people who are mostly negative thinkers found where most negative experiences are stored in the neocortex, the front part of the brain. And as they gave people exercises, positive mindset, helping them go from the default of negative to the default of positive, they discovered new neural pathways, and they discovered that positive experiences were stored on the opposite side of the negative experiences in the neocortex. Much like stroke victims create new neural pathways are created when we start to change our mind from negative to positive, or from not judging any moment. You see, that's a change. Not judging any moment. Maybe good, maybe bad. Who knows? Just embrace it. Because there's no spot where life is, there's no place, there's no moment where life actually is not your friend. When you have a difficult moment, it's life waking you up. It's knocking on your door to get you to change. Don't wait until you get a 2x4 like I did at age 50. But I can tell you, it was the most amazing gift of my life, albeit not wrapped as I would have liked, but even getting in the ambulance, even waiting for the ambulance, there was some divine guidance, some divine presence. And when I was 4 or 5, I used to feel that presence. Not love like from mommy or daddy. I felt a presence of something from the beyond. Infinite love, infinite grace, infinite mercy, unconditional. Unconditional. And these words do not do it justice, by the way. I'm giving you some words. 1 second in the hospital bed, the next second, one with unconditional love, infinite grace, infinite mercy. No small-minded thinking. I was one with what created a universe. And you can bring that thinking with you every day. It'll make you a better leader because you'll start observing what shows up. You'll just be with it. Oh, okay, here it is. It reached me, must be meant for me. Everything works together for good. Okay, let's go down this road. And not living in life as a reaction, but living in life present in every moment with wonder and awe and gratitude. And then curiosity. What's the gift in this? Instead of reacting. There's no gift in this. Come over here. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. I'm right. You're wrong. And it's fascinating. Our leaders are doing all of this, dividing the country into sides, and then expecting the general population to behave differently. They're modeling poor behavior. They're not getting up and saying, the other side has a point when it says this, and these people have a point when they say that, and here's our thought. And we can all get together and compromise. That's a dialogue. A dialogue is a jointly created reality. When you're willing to have a dialogue with all those around you, as a leader, as a salesperson, you let go of the idea of how you want the outcome to be. You surrender to the moment. And that's where you begin to embrace life as a friend. You're welcoming whatever shows up, because after all, you can't control it anyway. You give up your title as general manager of the universe. I've had that discussion with my clients. Does that sound like you're general manager of the universe? And after all these years, because most of them chuckle and say, yeah, I am, Steve. I got to give it up. Yeah, okay. Try that. Because I don't want them to follow what I say. I want them to come to their own conclusion based on the questions I ask them and based on my experience. Because we do live in something Utterly amazing, truly amazing. We live in a miracle. Remember, we're floating around on this little ball. We're floating around on it, in the midst of a vacuum, a void. But you don't have to think that way. Continue making everyone wrong so you can be right. Continue pointing it out. Continue being difficult to get along with. Continue telling people it's who you are, get over it. Choose that energy and see what occurs. You could compare both. Maybe do one for 2 weeks and do the other where you embrace every moment that shows up. And even go to bed with some awe and an excitement and enthusiasm. I wonder what will show up tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to it. If some of you are listening or will listen to this, it'll be recorded, it'll be on YouTube, it'll be on LinkedIn, it'll be on my Facebook page. Well, it reached you for a reason. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything except make your life an experiment. When you do good, how do you feel? Maybe that's what you get up every day and say, I'm going to do good today. Whoever shows up. Somebody shows up and asks you for a few bucks, buy them a sandwich, plus give them a few bucks. But change your mind. Embrace what shows up. Because maybe it's the creator urging you to change. Whoever the creator is for you is fine. It's up to you to decide how you experience life. My question is, have you experienced life so far with anger, frustration, sadness, depression, small-minded thinking? How's that working out? You have the power to change. It takes work. Perhaps learning some of the things about yourself instead of believing it, learning you could change and that you have created this experience up until now. Les Brown says, wherever you are, you made an appointment with it at some point in time. So what? You could feel confronted. Maybe you could feel sad. You don't have to. You could just say, well, it all seemed like a good idea at the time. Get a sense of humor about yourself and learn to embrace life as a friend. I'm working on a book this year called Wake Up, Embrace Life as a Friend. I've also completed a book called In Plain Sight. Learn to see what most people miss and embrace life as it is. And I have stories of clients and stories of people that they shared with me all their challenges that they thought were mistakes and errors and disappointments. And as they reflect back now, they know that was life working to wake them up, and it was a gift. And they're amazed as they look back now. That book is being submitted to publishers. If you know one, submit it to me. Send it to me. Email me, steve@stevelentini.com. Here, I'll get out of the way of the steve@stevelentini.com. My website is www.stevelentini.com. Email me. Challenge me. Ask me for a free coaching session. If I can help in 30 minutes, I'm glad to. It might change your life. I don't know. It's up to you. It's not up to me. Coaching doesn't do anything for people who aren't open. I've said to people, you're fighting coaching. We're done. Or I've said, hey, there's something you're withholding from me. If you want to share it between now and the time of our next appointment, if you figure it out, let me know. Otherwise, we're complete. We're done coaching. Most figure it out. Some do not. That's okay. Did you ever water a plant and you notice some plants don't take the water in? It sits on top. Some of us are that way, and I was that way for a long time. Off and on until my 40s. And then certainly when I was 50, I got the wake-up call, the greatest gift of my life. The peek at what's next. People ask me, Steve, when are we going to meet your partner? The name of my company is Lord and Lentini. And I kid them and say, well, sign the check because we all meet my partner. Sign the check first. We're all going to meet my partner, our partners. We're going to move into what's next. But we spend so much of our life not living because we're afraid. We're afraid of dying. we don't die. Read the sacred scriptures. Read writings from poets and mystics for thousands of years. This is an experience. It's a brief physical experience. Why not make it a glorious one, a happy one? And it's just about changing your mind. But don't take my word for it. Go and experiment with it. And then write to me after a year. Maybe I'll include you in one of my books. You will amaze yourself, at least in my experience. Thank you, everyone. Again, Steve at stevelentini.com, Steve at stevelentini.com. Anytime you have a question, I'm glad to help. You'll get an answer within 24 hours. That I promise. Or maybe even a call back if you leave me your phone number. Thank you.